What's going on, everyone? So late last night or early morning, depending on where you are in the world, we got the shocker. James Harden officially traded to the Clippers, and James Harden and PJ Tucker are the prizes going to the Clippers. And the Clippers ended up giving up Marcus Morris, Nicholas Batum, Robert Covington, KJ Martin, multiple draft picks, and pick swaps. Now, it is extremely surprising that they didn't have to give up Powell or Terrence Mann, but I do think, and this is something that I've talked about here on this channel, is I do think that getting Morris, Batum, and Covington, and then also the young Martin, who can go and get you some buckets, I think is actually huge for the Sixers. One, the James Harden era is officially over, right? And you got rid of that just headache, and now you can kind of move forward. But you also, more than anything, got a group of players that will actually want to play for Philly, right? And on top of that, you got more size, you got better defense, and I think collectively, those guys can make up for the production that you're losing in James Harden. I think it makes them deeper. I think it makes them more versatile. I think it makes them more sizable, right? Now, this whole drama was it's crazy, right? And it was really interesting it was almost surprising that James Harden got traded, not necessarily to the Clippers or, period, but the fact that it happened right now, because the last reports we got, James Harden, bags packed, ready to go, was getting ready to board the plane. The Sixers security stopped him from boarding the plane. Sixers and James Harden talked, and they said, hey, we want you to go and get in game shape. We want you to go to the practice facility, work out, get yourself ready as soon as possible, and go to join us when we get back, right? And that tells me, one, that it's very possible James Harden isn't in shape and isn't game ready, which isn't surprising at all, given that James Harden has done that pretty much everywhere he's gone when he's unhappy. Comes in out of shape, not ready to play, almost out. Even with the Houston Rockets, it was so bad they thought he was wearing a fat suit. That's bad. And so how do we go from James Harden's ready to go and, the Sixers, to all of a sudden, oh, that's it, we just traded James Harden. That is what makes it a little surprising. But I think now, in hindsight, I think what it was the Sixers wanted to look and see, how do we look without James Harden? And the Sixers look pretty good. Sixers are 2-1 right now. They should be 3-0. They should have won that first game against Milwaukee. They should have. It's that simple. They should have won that game. To me, they dropped the ball. They lost that game. Don't get me wrong, Dame got hot and, really helped close that game out, but the Sixers were in control late, and they should have won that game. So I think the Sixers looked at it as okay, we're still very good. We're still probably as good without James Harden as we would be with James Harden. Guys are stepping up, right? Let's just go get the depth and the versatility, and at least we have guys to play, and hopefully, collectively, those guys give us as much, if not more, production than we would have with James Harden. That's kind of the approach that I think the Sixers were looking at, and I do think that was smart. Again, assuming that was actually what they did. But in general, the big thing is what happens with Joel Embiid. Is this enough to keep Joel Embiid happy and staying in Philly? Now, as of right now, there's no real inclination that Joel wants out or he's planning to ask out or anything. But if the Sixers aren't able to be a real contending team, and say around the trade deadline, the Sixers are kind of straggling, or let's say they're the 6th seed or something like that, does Joel Embiid just say, get me out of here? Or if they end up losing in the first or second round, this summer does Joel Embiid say, get me out of here? That could be a real problem. Now, I do think you have a bit of a selling point for Joel Embiid where it's like, well, one, we'll have a bunch of cap flexibility this offseason. Two, we got rid of James Harden, who doesn't want to be here, who doesn't want to play. And we got a bunch of guys that do want to be here and do want to play. Got a bunch of guys that have size that can defend out on the perimeter. So we're bigger, we're more versatile, right? We're going to be better defensively. You know, we've looked good without James Harden. Tyrese Maxey can take that next step, right? We got a little bit of everything that we need. Let's go, right? At least, what are your options here? We could have forced James Harden to stay and play. He doesn't want to be here. He doesn't want to play. Now you're dealing with the risk of him sabotaging. You're dealing with the risk of just this circus, this headache. Now it's gone. It's out of sight. It's out of mind. We're done. Something I talked about this whole offseason. Just unload James Harden. I know you want Terrence Mann. I know you want this guy and that guy and the other. Forget it. Just get rid of James Harden. Get off of him. Because all it's going to do is run the risk of you losing Joel Embiid. And they did. They caved, they unloaded James Harden, and now it's just trying to do damage control to not lose Joel Embiid. But to me, I think the biggest argument that you have for Joel is look at how deep we are. You got Tyrese Maxey, you got Mo Bamba, you got DeAnthony Melton, you got Kelly Oubre, right? You got Tobias Harris, Danny Green, you got Patrick Beverly, right? Patrick Beverly's on that team. I think House is still on that team, right? Paul Reed. And now you just got Nicholas Batum, Marcus Smart, and Robert Covington. So if I'm Daryl Morey, I'm selling Joel Embiid on like, dude, we are one of the deepest teams in the league. Tyrese Maxey can go and get buckets. He can show up. James Harden isn't going to show up in the playoffs anyway. So if you show up and Maxey shows up, and with all this depth and talent, we can absolutely make a play. And now we have all these picks. We have these things. We have these salaries, expiring deals and stuff, to where if a star does become available, then we can go make that push to go try to get that other star or something like that, right? I think you can kind of, again, do a little bit of damage control to keep and convince Joel Embiid to stay with the Sixers, at least momentarily. And that's all you could really ask for. But I think it's going to boil down to Maxey, right? If Maxey balls out this year, which he is, I mean, through 3 games, he's averaging 30 points, just under 7 rebounds and 6 assists. He's literally averaging 30.3 points, 6.7 rebounds, and 6.3 assists. He's 22 years old in his 3rd season. If he can maintain that, not necessarily the 30 points, but if he can stay in like the mid-20s, then the Sixers, 1, will be very good. And 2, I do think will convince James Harden, like, okay, we're good. Joel Embiid. I think it'll convince Joel Embiid, like, okay, we're good. Here we go. Right? I got my other star, or all-star level player. Right? I got a bunch of depth, bunch of size, a bunch of versatility. We can run all kinds of different lineups, all kinds of different sets. Right? We have a bunch of expiring contracts, so we can always like retool next offseason. Or at the trade deadline, maybe make some moves to get some guys, right? We got some toughness. We got some defense. We got everything we need. We should still be pretty good. At worst, we're as good as we are with James Harden, which is, 2nd round. Maybe we get to the conference finals. But I really do think that Joel Embiid can kind of talk himself into, all right, I need to stick this out. And I think if you're the Sixers, you can kind of talk Joel Embiid into the same thing. And I think that it's not the ideal trade, right? And just like looking at it on the surface, it's like, man, Sixers got fleeced. I don't really think they did. I think that this was, addition by subtraction. And then you got some real pieces and some real players and some veterans that have been there, that have done that can play a big role and really kind of help right the ship with this team. And I think now you go make that push. And this kind of frees Maxey, and he can kind of go be the second guy. He probably wins, MIP, most improved player, probably an all-star this year. And now you're good to go. You're off to the races. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? Do you agree with my points? Do you disagree with my points? Do you think, this actually makes the Sixers better? Do you think, no, it doesn't make them better? Do you think that it can? Again, however you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments.